Morning everybody, welcome to our retreat day, thinking through the season of autumn. I'm going to kickstart our time together today with our usual beginning point, which is a reflection just around Ecclesiastes 3 and what it means to recognise the different seasons of life. And as it's autumn, I thought I would change it up a little bit. Rather than sitting in front of a computer, I thought I'd get out and about into an autumnal setting, so coming at you from a very sunny and beautiful Markeaton Park. If you've got a Bible near you, maybe you want to turn to Ecclesiastes 3 and we're going to read this together, and I'm just going to throw out a couple of familiar thoughts just to centre ourselves as we begin to reflect on this particular season that we're in. So here we go, Ecclesiastes 3. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What gain have the workers from their toil? I have seen a business that God has given to everyone to be busy with. He has made everything suitable for its time. Moreover, he has put a sense of past and future into their minds, yet they cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I know that there is nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. Moreover, it is God's gift that all should eat and drink and take pleasure in all their toil. So an initial reading of this passage might suggest that these times are the sorts of things that we're in control of. Like, we get to choose when it's a time to build up or a time to tear down or a time to sow or a time to reap. And that's certainly the way that I used to interpret the passage. Like, I was in control of the time. But a more closer reading of the passage suggests that that's actually not what is going on at all. The reality is that we don't get to choose the seasons. There is a season for everything under the sun. And actually, what our job is to do is to read the season itself and work out what time it therefore is. You know, is this season a season in which it's the appropriate time to sow or the appropriate time to reap? If we were to try and sow in sow in winter, we probably wouldn't get very far. If we were to try and reap in summer, it might be a bit premature. And so the first thing we need to do as we begin our time together is to remember that we're not in control of the season of life necessarily that we find ourselves in. Sometimes that is beyond our control. What we're invited to do is to read the calendar, work out what is the season that we're in, and then work out what the appropriate activity for us is. So 3 other things I just want us to remember as we posture ourselves today. The first is that one of the things that's intriguing about this passage is it seems to deem all of the activities good. And that might seem a little bit strange to us at first, because the passage includes things like there's a time to hate and a time to kill. And so I just want to remind ourselves that there is this passage is poetic. There is a poetic device going on. I'm not necessarily suggesting that it tells us that we should literally go around killing. I think more what it's trying to say is there is a time for these activities that we might otherwise necessarily think are negative or unpleasant or the kinds of things that we proactively want to avoid. And what's being suggested is actually, no, there are times where actually that is appropriate, that is okay, that might even be the good and the right thing for us. And so as we start thinking about autumn, I want us to think through what are some of the autumnal activities that we may want to avoid, but actually nevertheless are good and right for us in this season, in this moment. With that, I think it's worth us recognizing that this passage is not naive. It's not like really it's not overly positive, it's actually quite realistic. You know, it recognises that actually sometimes, a lot of times even, life looks like toil. It uses the word toil in this passage, or Ecclesiastes uses the word toil something like twice as many times as it appears in the whole rest of the Bible. It is realistic about the fact that life can sometimes be tricky and difficult, and yet it invites us to remember that we can still, as we toil, as some of these activities may be unpleasant, demanding, difficult, not what we would necessarily choose for ourselves, they can still be good and appropriate. So if you are coming into today feeling weary and burdened, if you are coming into this space feeling like life feels a lot like toil at the moment, I want to empathise with you, but also remind you that the Bible empathises with you, and that Koheleth, the writer of Ecclesiastes, empathises with you. And it's okay to feel that, and it's okay to recognise that actually, even as we're trying to retreat, aspects of today, aspects of what you're thinking through may feel demanding, tricky, but that's okay, because actually God does want to breathe life into this and bring goodness through this. So just want to encourage you to engage with the goodness that can come through the trickiness, and the goodness that can come through the unpleasant and the toiling. And then a third and final point I want to make, just building off of that idea, is the fact that this passage also does genuinely believe that in the midst of whatever season, in the midst of whatever circumstances, in the midst of toil or rest, of life or death, goodness and hope can still be found through the eating and the drinking and the fellowship with others. And although we can't necessarily physically be together eating and drinking and fellowshipping with one another, we're still going to eat, still going to drink, still going to be touching base with one another throughout the day and sharing hearts and minds and experiences. And my hope is that the outcome of the day, no matter what you're bringing into it, no matter what you're processing throughout it, is that you will feel a sense of joy and hope and peace, even in the midst of all that is going on. So just as we draw this little reflection to a close, 3 questions I want to leave you with. Number 1, what seasonal baggage are you carrying into today? What are you bringing into this space? 2, what are your hopes for the day ahead? What are you wanting to get out of it? What are you wanting to hear from God or from others? And 3, what are some of the questions and ideas that you want to process throughout the day? Good for you to be aware of them. We want you to bring them to the table with you. We want to share in them with you. So have a think about those 3 things. What's the baggage you're bringing? What are your hopes? And what are your questions? And I look forward to touching base with you later on in the day, after hopefully you've gone on a walk like this. And I look forward to sharing some thoughts with you as well later on tonight. Be blessed, rest, reflect, and I'll see you shortly. Bye for now.